Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. One of the great songs of our history by the great, and sad to say late, Otis Redding. People love Sitting by the Dock of the Bay. Well, we have another collaboration tonight where Rocco Pasafumi is going to talk about the musical greatness of Otis Redding, and his friend, who does our great aviation report, Rich Kaplan, is going to talk about the plane crash that sadly took Otis Redding's life. So, Rocco,
yes,
take it away.
Thank you very much, Howie. To start off, I'm going to give you a bit of background on Otis Redding. Otis Redding, yes, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay was his hit. It was his only hit that actually crossed over. But for a person who basically was a one-hit wonder, he made a big impact on R&B music because, you know, a lot of people take their inspiration from Otis Redding. There's a song that he did called Love Man, which is kind of, you know, even though it wasn't like a big hit in the pop mainstream, it's a song that's resonant with a lot of people from that time. And there's that song, and also there was a song that he did, another song of his called Hard to Handle, which even though that wasn't a big hit when he did it, there was a rock band called the Black Crowes who made it a hit in 1991. So Otis Redding left quite a big legacy, a much bigger legacy than many people think. A lot of people are very influenced by his singing and just the type of songs that he did. So, and yes, unfortunately, he really did not get a chance to really catch on because of a tragedy that happened to his career really at the, you know, just as he was starting to really take off with Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. So to take over for the rest of it will be my comrade, Mr. Richard Kaplan.
Thank you, Rocco. Now, the death of Otis Redding is one that is both interesting as it is mysterious, because this happened back in December 10th, 1967. Now, mind you, 40 plus years later, almost 50 years later, we have all this technology, we have all this amazing tech that allows us to not only investigate plane crashes, but from a forensic standpoint, to determine exactly what happened. Now, in this particular case, however, there is no cause. They've never yet determined what brought this aircraft down. But I, of course, as always, am going to break it down for you, and I'm even going to use one of our own staff members to help to educate you on the aspects of hypothermia, because it plays a big role in the death of Otis Redding. Otis was flying a Beechcraft Model 18, which is a twin-engined aircraft with 8 passengers on board, when it crashed into the frigid waters of a small lake just 3 miles from the airport. 7 of the 8 passengers, including Redding, were killed. Otis's body was found strapped into a seat at the rear portion of the aircraft. Now, I'm going to explain why this particular aspect from a forensic standpoint is interesting. A cause for this crash was never determined. The weather that day was cold, and the lake had not iced over, but was freezing. Now I'm going to bring in Dean DePasquale, who, as you know, is a surfer. He's very familiar with water conditions. He's familiar with weather. He has to be, because that's part of surfing. You got to know what you're surfing in. Now, Dean, come on over. What? Dane. I'm so bad with names, so forgive me. Dane, yes. That particular, if you were to surf in freezing conditions, what would happen as far as hypothermia? How long does it take to set in?
Well, as you guys have done recently, the polar bear plunge, you can feel how cold it gets. Within a matter of minutes, the blood goes away from your fingers and toes and goes to your core to warm your core up. The main purpose of your body shivering is to keep your body at around 95 or 100 degrees Fahrenheit, because if it dips any below that, your organs can start to shut down.
Now, we know that the lake was not iced over, but we do know from what the reports indicate that it was freezing. What window of survival before medical arrives on scene do you figure you have? If you're in a plane crash, you know you're trapped in a fuselage. You've got to obviously get yourself out of the aircraft. How long do you figure a person has in freezing conditions before it becomes serious and even fatal?
Yeah, the lower the temperature of the water, the less chance of surviving there really is. I would say that in those conditions, it was around probably 35 to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. you can probably last an hour, maybe 2 hours, and if you have clothes on, that's going to keep you a little bit warmer. If you're a little fatter, that's also going to keep you a little warmer. But if you're a skinny man, you're not looking at chances of surviving.
So there we have it. So it's very likely that Otis, because he was trapped, probably panicked, and his panic, from an EMS standpoint, I was a fire medic, I was also a firefighter. I did a little ice water rescue. And I can tell you, when you panic, the adrenaline sets in and it accelerates your likelihood for passing away. It plays an opposite role. The more you panic, the less likely you are to survive, because you're using valuable oxygen, you're using valuable energy. Now, in this particular circumstance, what I believe may have happened, piecing together from what I was able to research, something with the aircraft went horribly wrong. My guess is icing. Now, back then, they did not have the appropriate de-icing equipment that planes have now. For example, an MD-80 has strafes on the wings that automatically de-ice. It melts the ice right off the wing. I believe there was ice on the wing, which weighed the aircraft down and caused it to go into the water right before the runway. They had no warning that this was happening, no opportunity. Among the dead were 3 children. It is a big tragedy, and I want to thank Dane for his input, because it gives you a valuable insight that you may not have otherwise into what happens when a plane goes into freezing water. Later on, I'm going to be talking about this very issue on my segment, and I want to thank Dane, I want to thank Rocco, and I especially want to thank Howie.
Thanks, Dave.
Great job on the Otis Redding collaboration.